Hello everybody, my name is Rome, I'm a real life flight instructor, and today we're going to be looking at how we can connect to the Vatsim network and also obtain a clearance, and also look over a few other terms to get you up to speed on how we can basically communicate on the Vatsim network. Now before we do log on to the network, we're going to go over a few terms which you may or may not have heard before, which you are required to understand so we can communicate on the Vatsim network. Now the first term we're going to talk about is Unicom. Now what is Unicom? Well, it is essentially a non-towered frequency dedicated to an airport so you can communicate to other traffic at that airport. Now in Vatsim it is slightly different compared to real life, because in real life each airport would have their own dedicated frequency, whereas in Vatsim Unicom is the same frequency throughout the whole of the network. The frequency is 122.8, so whenever you are not speaking with air traffic control, we must be monitoring and also making radio calls to that frequency to make other traffic in the area aware of our intentions. Another term which I want to explain so people can understand is the term flight level or altitude. Now the difference between altitude and flight level is basically to do with the transition altitude. So to explain this a bit more with how a flight level would work, we want to understand about the transition flight level or altitude. So in the United States and in Canada, they have a standardized transition flight level of 180, meaning at 18,000 feet it will transition to a flight level. So this means that when we're taking off of our airport down here, we are below the transition flight level or TFL, therefore we have to be on our local QNH or altimeter, and we take instructions and repeat them as altitude. However, the moment you reach 18,000 feet or the transition flight level, they will start calling it a flight level. So they will say climb flight level 190, meaning that you acknowledge it back as a flight level and you switch over to standard pressure, which is 29902 or 1013.2 hectopascal. So those are the sort of two main terms which I want to explain. Everything else you can understand as we go along in this video. What we're going to do first is launch and also log into Vatsim. So what we're going to do is essentially load up VPilot, quite simple. And then once it's finished loading up, it will come up at the top saying we can connect. And then what we're going to do is click on connect, set our call sign which we want to do. So for example, today we're going to be taking the call sign American 192. Put in our type code and our cellcal code. Basically a cellcal code is a frequency which they basically play a sound at so they can contact the aircraft. I'm sure there are other videos online which can explain and also demonstrate it a lot easier, but yeah. So we're going to click on connect to log into the network, and we can confirm our call sign is at the top there. And then our frequencies are now going to come alive, which we are close enough to listen or communicate on. So we're on the ground at JFK, so we have ATIS right here. So we're going to leave this for the moment, and what we're going to do next is look at creating our flight plan and filing it. So if we want to create a flight plan, we want to go to a website called simbrief.com. We go to dispatch and then basically create our flight plan in here. You would also have to log in, which takes a couple seconds to create an account. And then what we want to do is actually create a flight and then put in our information in which we are using. So we want to put in our airline designator, which is AAL, and then our flight number 192, and then we want to put in our departure and arrival airport, so KJFK. And then KCLT, for example, should be in Charlotte Douglas. We would then want to scroll down on the aircraft types and select the type which we're flying, which is the Boeing 738. And then for sakes, I have different types of variants, which can basically create different weight balances. So I'm just going to select first class config. And then I want mine in pounds. You can also select your different types of layouts, your online flight plans. I'm just going to keep it set to Lido. And just quickly check everything else down here is working. We're also going to quickly check what departure runway is in use. So departure runway 04 left, so I'll keep that at the moment. And then all we can do is essentially click on generate. So it has now created a flight plan using the most common routes and also most suitable as well. And it will also give us typically a departure, which I don't believe it has today, is giving us a direct departure with our waypoints and airways, so Quebec 430, Copes, and Quebec 75, and so on. So we've created our flight plan. So now what we want to do is file the flight plan. So what we can do is go up to the top here, click on pre-file to a network, and click on pre-file there for the network we're filing on, being Vatsim. And then for me, it doesn't ask me to sign in, but it may ask you. And it's going to import all of the information which we're trying to file with. So our call sign, our aircraft type, altitudes, and so on. And then it's quite simple. We just got to click on File Flight Plan. Now, this is just one way to file the flight plan. The other way is via the actual VPilot client. So going on the VPilot client, we also have flight plan here, in which we can enter our information. So KJFK, so KCLT, our alternate being so KATL. Departure time, I'm going to leave it at 0000 because we don't have a specific time. They're not too big on this, unless if you're doing an event in which they will typically give you a departure slot. You want to put that information in. Time en route, we're going to take this, so it's going to be 1 hour and 30 minutes. If you're available, we're just going to take about 3 hours of fuel. Our cruise speed, we're just going to leave it at 450, and then set our altitude to 36,000 feet, or should be flight level 360. And then we're going to select voice and also copy our route. Now, equipment suffix. If you're aware of what different equipment you have in your aircraft and you know what it is, put it. Also, if you're a heavy aircraft, so if your aircraft weighs more than 300,000 pounds, you want to tick this because you're technically heavy. And then all you want to do is click on File, and that's it. That's all of your information filed to the network. Next, we want to basically get our clearance. So we're going to do something called a craft clearance. And what a craft clearance is basically a acronym which has all of the important information for our clearance, being C, which is our cleared airport, R being our route, A is our altitudes, F our departure frequencies, and T being our transponder codes. Okay, so before we do actually call for our clearance, we want to do two things. First of all, we want to listen to the ATIS, so I believe it is 128725, as we can see there. So 128725 in the active.
Kennedy Airport ATIS information Romeo 15510. 1020 at 15. Visibility 10. Few clouds at 4,600. Few clouds at 25,000. Temperature 4. Dew point -6. Altimeter 3044. Approach and use ILS runway 4 right. ILS 4. Departing runway 4 left. Notices to air mission. Operate transponder on mode Charlie on all taxiways and runways. Read and call runway hold short instructions. Advise on initial contact. You have information Romeo.
Okay, so information we got from that is that we've got information Romeo, we got our winds, our clouds, our current altimeter setting, which is also 3044. So if I press B, it should also reset it to that. And also the departure runway, which is 04 left. So we've got the ATIS now. What we can do is start setting up the aircraft ready so we can pretty much take the clearance. So we are going from K JFK. So, okay, so we've now set up the FMS enough so that we can start getting ready for our clearance. So we know we're taking runway 4 left, which we have selected. We don't have a departure SID, which is a standardized instrument departure. So we're going to keep this page up just in case they do decide to assign us a SID. So we've got the Ds 5, the JFK 5 and the score 4. I'll keep this up just in case they do give me a different route. And now we can basically call up JFK on the ground and tell them that, tell them who we are, where we are, and what we're on. So what we're going to say is JFK ground, American 192, stand 41, with information Romeo, request IFR. New York ground, good evening, American 192, stand 41, with information Romeo, request IFR, please.
American 192, Kennedy ground, good evening. Good morning, thanks for Romeo. You can expect a PDC.
Okay, roger, expect PDC, American 192. So today, because it's New York, typically it's a bit busier there, they typically give out electronic clearances, or PDCs. So what we're expecting to have is a PDC come through on our VPilot client, and here we are, we got our ACARS, which is our PDC. So what this information has is pretty much exactly what we would have in our craft clearance. So we're cleared to Charlotte with our route, which is basically this. Our altitude is flight level 360. Our squawk is 1026. And then they've also given us some remarks. So we're cleared to JFK, departure. So we're going to fly runway heading to 1.5 DME, then track heading to 100, then maintain 5,000 and expect flight level 360 10 minutes after departure. And then our departure frequency is 122.8. And then advise ATIS when we call for taxi. So let's put this inside of our clipboard now so it makes a bit more sense. Okay, so this clearance in the PDC is a slightly different format. Although all the information is there, it is in a slightly different order because of the way how New York formats it, but it is quite easy to understand. So let's look at it in the format of our craft clearance. So at first we've got our clearance to Charlotte, or CLT, and then on departure, let's just quickly mute this, and then our route. So when we depart, we want to fly runway heading up to 1.5 DME, then we're going to turn right to 100. Our initial climb is to maintain 5,000 feet, and we're expected to be cleared to flight level 360 10 minutes afterwards. Our departure frequency is 122.8, and our squawk is 1026. Now that is one of the ways to obtain a clearance, which is via the PDC. So let's go to a different airport which is smaller, where they will give us a clearance via voice. Okay, so we're now on the ground at Jacksonville, and we've just filed our flight plan and got the ATIS, which is Delta. So all we've got to do now is essentially obtain the clearance. So let's quickly go into our departure, and we will keep our SIDs up just in case they do decide to give us a different clearance. But we are expected to have the Cross B2 departure. So let's go get our clearance now. Jacksonville ground, American 192, stand 21 with information Delta, request IFR.
Okay, American 192, that looks a lot better there. So cleared to Charlotte Douglas International Airport via Crosby 2 departure, Whisper transition, then is filed. Maintain 3,000, expect flight level 37010 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 127.0, squawk 7755.
Okay, clear to Charlotte via Crosby 2 via the Whisper transition. Maintain 3,000 feet and expect flight level 37010 minutes after. Departure frequency 127.0 and squawk 7755, American 192.
American 192, read that correct. Push and start is at pilot's discretion. Advise ready to taxi with current weather.
Okay, we'll get back to you, American 192, thanks. Okay, that is it, and that is how we essentially obtain a clearance. It's now just a case of taking all this information and plugging it into the aircraft, such as our initial climb altitude, which is 3,000 feet, and squawk 7755, for example. And it's just a case of now pushing back. So we're going to end this episode right here, and we're going to pick it up in the next episode with the pushback, departure, and also climb and cruise. But we are going to have to end this video right here, so if you did enjoy it or find it useful, make sure you do click on that like button and that subscribe button, as it does help out the channel quite a lot. If you have any more questions about this, please make sure you do ask us, or join our Discord and ask us in there. Any links relating to Vatsim will be in the description, including some other information, for example like airline call sign lists, so you know the identifiers. But other than that, my name is Rowan, and you've been watching Information Alpha. See ya!